You're listening to the Career Diaries with Brianna or Sherry, where each week we laugh and learn with industry experts, talk through the highs and lows of their career journeys, and unlock the secrets to career success in any field. Email bri@careerdiariespodcast.com. That's BRI@careerdiariespodcast.com with your burning career questions to get them answered on the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Career Diaries podcast. I'm your host, Brianna Autry, and today I am joined by Merry Carole Powers. She is the awesome creative director at Deloitte and, most importantly, author of The Great Human Rebrand. Welcome to the podcast, Merry.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. And sorry, you go by Merry Carole. I'll remember that.
I do.
Yeah, happy to have you here. There's so much I want to cover with you. I've never interviewed a creative director, and I think it's one of those nebulous titles where everyone thinks you're just the coolest person at the company. At least that's how I always think of creative directors. So I'm excited to kind of dig in with you today on what that actually means.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And then more importantly, I want to spend the majority of the time talking about your book, because I think it has implications for anyone listening in on their approaching their career, approaching leadership, approaching how they look at companies, what they should be, sort of digging in on within their current company, red flags they can look out for. And it's just totally a whole new way of looking at things. So yeah, I'm really excited to chat about that with you.
Fantastic. I am as well. Thank you. And I hope it's doing all that for people.
Yeah. I think it will. So you have almost 20 years experience, 18 or 20?
I am a word person, not a math person, but I would say 20.
Yeah, I'm not a math person either. So I've got about 20 years of experience in this title as a creative director. So I kind of want to get started on what was your first role in that field? How did you get it? What did that look like?
Yeah. So my first job was as a copywriter in advertising. And to get that job, I actually went postgraduate. I graduated with a journalism degree. I've been a writer literally my whole life. I was in 6th grade when I first got paid for writing. So after graduate school, and when I decided I really wanted to get into more of a creative writing position, I went to a commercial portfolio writing school. So I built a portfolio through school and then got a job, got a couple boutique jobs. But I would say my first real job was at a very large agency in Chicago, where I worked on, giant accounts, global accounts, McDonald's, Anheuser-Busch, things like that, doing television commercials, radio commercials, print, video, online, all just the whole shebang.
Yeah, it runs the gambit. So you were paid in first grade to write?
I was in 6th grade. Did I say 6 years? I meant 6th grade. Yes. Yeah, it was this weird thing. I was just sitting in the cafeteria. It's one of those things where I swear life just showed me what I wanted to do. I was sitting in the cafeteria, just coloring and doodling, after school, waiting for some friends. And these boys from 1 grade up came up and asked me if I would write Valentine's Day cards for their girlfriends, if I'd write all the poems. And I'm like, all right. And they said, we'll pay you $1 a poem. So I called up my first writing gig.
That is ingenious on those boys' parts.
Yeah. Well, it showed me, I never kind of looked back. I was like, oh, I don't even know why they asked me, but this is fun. And this is easy for me. And I know we'll get into more of this, but if it's fun and it's easy for you, you're pretty much on the right track.
Wow, that's fate. Okay. So, from first grade to your first writing job, creative writing, and then everything in between. So after that, where'd you go? What'd you do?
After my first job?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've stayed in the big advertising agency world for probably the first decade of my career. And it was great. I learned a lot. What I like to say is I learned a lot about how to succeed in my job. But more importantly, I learned a lot about how to succeed in my career. And to me, those are two very different things. To succeed in my job, I had to learn to write in different mediums. I had to, learn how to direct voiceover talent. I had to learn how to shoot television commercials, really granular things. But to succeed in my career, I really had to learn how to take my personal skills and apply them professionally. And that is something that it didn't matter what job I was in, what agency I was at, what account I was on. If I knew how to take, the wit that I was born with and turn that into a pithy headline, and how to take the creativity I was born with to distill big ideas into simple, like easy, enjoyable to watch, snackable solutions. And and how to take like the ability to like inspire others and learn how to be a leader versus a manager. Those are all really big skills that I think that move me forward. So for my first career, I went, I was at 2 or 3 different really large global agency networks. And then I would say what I learned pretty abruptly was that none of it really mattered. And by that, I mean my mother passed away right as I was really hitting like kind of a stratospheric up in my career trajectory. And it was just one of those things where like, I just didn't matter. Like death is the great perspective giver, right? It literally just, I could not care how much cereal or beer the world bought. It didn't matter to me anymore. And that was like, I don't know, I guess I'd call that like an identity crisis for me professionally, because everything I was good at, everything I knew, everything I had worked for was suddenly just kind of meaningless and hollow.
I completely relate to that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I experienced my first immediate family death when I was 15, and it totally shifted the way I viewed everything. And I think the person I became as an adult is completely shaped by that. So I totally understand.
Yeah, it's a thing, huh? It just changes who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sorry for your loss.
And I yours.
Thank you. And I want to talk more about what that meant in that moment. So your mother passes, you realize who gives a shit if the world is buying beer or cereal.
Right?
And then you think, what?
What do I do? I am, not everybody in the world who has like a career crisis can just leave their job. Right. And so what I had to do was find a way to find meaning and matter. I didn't have a trust fund to disappear to. I didn't have a big enough side hustle to disappear to. I didn't have anything else I loved enough to go back to school for. So I really I would say I stumbled around in the dark for a couple of years trying to figure it out. I went freelance. I bought myself more time. I spent a lot more time with, my father and other people in my family. And then I was at a freelance position and was put on an assignment to, this was kind of cool. So, and I would call this actually a pivot in my career. This was like a moment where I found meaning again. I just always was like having a hard time. Like, I'm just shilling for product. I'm just shilling for product. That doesn't matter. So I walk into this assignment and it was to spend a day at the Ronald McDonald House because we were going to be promoting some of the philanthropic services that the brand did. And so showed up there at like 6 o'clock in the morning and we were there till, probably well after 10 o'clock at night. And really, it was such a privilege to be able to see the way a brand can help a set of people. And it was like from the big things to the little things. There were people there who had spent their life savings just trying to keep a child alive. And so they didn't have a place to stay, but they had to go to a hospital in a major city. So there was a place for them to stay. They couldn't think about cooking. They were at the hospital all day. They came home to a home cooked meal. They had, free telephone service so they could call back home and speak to their kids who were healthy, check in, give updates, medically. It was humbling. It was eye-opening. It was heart-opening. And it just in that moment, I realized like, you know what? Creativity can help a brand do a lot of good in the world. The more profit a purpose-driven brand makes, the more good it does because it gives back. And that changed everything for me. It mattered again. Right? I just shifted from advertising and marketing is all about products to actually it's about people and the differences we can make in the world we live in. And then the wick got lit again.
That's really interesting that you didn't need a new career necessarily, although we'll get into your book and all that. But you needed a perspective shift in what you were working for and why you were doing what you were doing.
I needed to feel a purpose in it for sure.
Yeah.
I need to know that, at the end of my life, I want to look back and hope and see something that I feel mattered. I want to hope, my presence here made a difference somewhere along the way, even a tiny little way. And so there I saw I could do it. I could keep all of the skills I had, all the experience I had earned and apply it in a way that, kept my life alive, but kept my heart alive. So
Well, what would you say to people who are thinking about their own careers and what they are doing right now and feeling that lack of purpose and searching for it?
I would say one thing to do is to find how to apply your personal strengths, your personal passions, and your personal loves to what you do. And sometimes that's not super obvious, right? Because we live in this really linear career world. You are, okay, so at one point I was helping veterans transition from service into careers. And at the time it was like, oh, you did logistics or you drove a truck. Okay, we'll put you in transportation. And I was like, well, hold on a second. Like, what about all the leadership and the teamsmanship that you learn in the military? What about this greater good that you're willing to stand up and serve? How can those skills not be important and be applied as we move forward? So, to bring that back to your question, we have a lot of skills that the world sort of sets aside because they aren't the obvious ways to make money. And so, when you can bring some more of that to the table, you can start to find your meaning in what you do. Um, as an example, and I think we talked a little bit about this, let's just say you're great at music. And okay, so not everybody can make a career as a musician. So our culture says set that aside, quote unquote, grow up and move on. But if you're at home and you're making, you're playing the guitar all weekend, but you're in a job you hate, the fact of the matter is you have the ability to create harmony. Harmony has the ability to build a better team. A better team has the ability to succeed better in any career. So you just sort of have to find that path to bring what you're great at and what you're passionate about into what you do. And it's not always easy and it's not always linear. And when we talk about the book, there are ways to help people. I try to find ways to help people do that. But when you can connect personal, who you are as a human being to what you do as a professional, I think you can find meaning and love in any career.
That's really beautiful. So let's talk about the book, right? It's called The Great Human Rebrand: How to Step Out of the Labels That Divide Us and Into the Humanity That Unites Us. And it's available on Amazon and wherever else you can find this book. Just Google it. We'll also have the link in the show notes. But yeah, let's talk about how that kind of dives into that topic a little bit.
Yeah. So the book is sort of built in three really deliberate building blocks. And the first one is I take a look at labels. Like, listen, when you work in advertising, you become a master label maker. We understand how to take a label for any product, give it a great story, make it look really cool, and make people sort of want to engage with it. And in engaging with it, we're able to sort of manipulate behavior, whether that's a purchase, whether that's a like on a social media, whatever that is, a click on YouTube, whatever that is, we have learned to use labels. It's a triggering word, but to manipulate behavior. So that was not a proud moment in my life when I realized that was, a part of my job. But when it came to the book, it's like, okay, if I know how to make a label, I know how to deconstruct a label. And I can help people see this is how labels are used in our culture. And so that they can step out of it, right? So the first step is being able to have a bigger perspective, to sort of cut the puppet strings that you don't even know you might have attached to you. So first part of the book is peeling back the curtain and giving people a better look at the way labels work, because they're used across our culture. It's not just branding. They're definitely used by political systems, by educational systems, by religious systems. It's just a way of functioning in our culture, be it good or bad. And so the second part of the book, then I kind of put the proof in the pudding. I was like, okay, if I'm telling you there's more to life than the labels we wear, let's look at. So I do a specific case study where I deconstruct the labels of gender, male and female. And I picked that one for two reasons. One, it's a label I have the right to talk about. Like, as someone who was born female, identifies female, I've had that experience. Two, I was really sort of in the wake of the Me Too movement and all of that, the labels got very much in the way of people coming together. We started really focusing on that versus everything else that comes with that. And I just felt like there was so much more opportunity to come together in the wake of all that honesty and all that wide open conversation. So I wanted to use that label for that reason as well. So part one, here's what the labels look like. Part two, when you peel them back, here's the humanity that is universal, that everybody has access to, that lives under that. And in that humanity, here's the very natural human nature ways that it can bring us together and bring us closer. So it really helps everybody, whether they identify with a specific gender or a non-binary gender, sort of look deeper at themselves than that label that we all were identified with even before we were born.
Yeah.
And then once you get underneath it, so here's what the labels do to you, here's how to get under them. Then once you're under them, how do you take this deeper sense of humanity that's you? And to go back to your earlier question, really suss out your individuality, your innate talents that you were born with, your personal values that create these passions for you, your skills that you've earned, that you've probably paid for education and for career, and you've earned skills and all of that, and bring it together in a way that matters to you, in a way that brings more of who you are as a human being to everything you do in your life. Because look, think about how much time we spend in our careers. It's staggering how much of our life energy and time will go into our careers. We want them to matter. We want them to mean something. That time is time away from family, time away from self, time away from other things we love. Like, it's really important that there is no personal life and professional life. There's only life, and we get to make the most of it. That is our right.
Yeah. Really well said. So when someone is reading this book, what do you want them to walk away understanding?
It would make me incredibly happy if people walked away understanding there's more to all of us than the culture we currently live in would lead us to believe. That there is more that we have in common than that keeps us apart. And that we have a right, an absolute inalienable right to be ourselves, to succeed as ourselves, and to not apologize or hide or put on the shelf any part of ourselves because the world we inherited told us that it's not valuable or it's not acceptable or it's not any of those things. So to know yourself better and to know to admit there might be parts of you don't know as well as you think you do, and to have I don't want to say permission, but to find the inspiration to dig deeper and bring more to the table. That would make me very happy if that book did that for even one person.
Okay. I agree. I mean, and so if they're going to implement that in their job today, like, what are some things that they can do?
Implement what specifically? Sorry.
Implement the teachings of the book in their career, in their current role, looking for a new role.
Yep. I identify. So I would say get into the individuality. We live in this label sort of a construct, right? I am insert the job title here. I am good at insert the job description here. Set all of that aside and figure out everything you are innately good at in your life. What did you just naturally excel at as a kid? And again, it doesn't matter if it was music, if it was gardening. Just bring it back onto the table. What skills have you learned along the way? Let's be honest, what shortcomings do you have that hold you back? What are your values and your passions? If you can identify what I call these elements of individuality, you can find a way to weave them together and use them to succeed, to find a better job, to kind of guide you into the jobs you like and you don't like. If there's a job out there that's paying well, but your skills don't match it, or you will not be fulfilled by it, it's going to end up costing you a lot more than it's going to pay you. And so to determine who you are on the inside and let that start to guide where you go on the outside, that's what I think everybody can get out of it. And how to do that, step one is to determine these elements of individuality that live below the labels and start to operate through it.
And as a manager, sort of flipping that, how can applying the practices in your book help managers become better at their jobs?
Yes. So I'm going to split hair because I just consider myself a leader and not a manager. And I
Yeah.
think super different. I think leaders focus on product and managers focus on people. And I specifically believe in service leadership. How do I lift up the people on my team? How, I've succeeded if they've succeeded and left my team to move up. So the principles of the book is I look at what people are good at. A lot of times they don't know. They don't even realize they're bringing certain things to the table because either they're really innate and they just never thought of them as strengths, or they have been told they aren't strengths and they try to hide them, or they are shortcomings and they're tripping over them, holding themselves up in the path. So what I always try to do is look at these individual things and coach people through them, either help them untangle them and dismantle them, or help them grow them and see all the different ways they can put them to work in their career. Because like I said, there's a job in front of you, then there's like the brand that you work for.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for people who can do certain soft skills. So I focus on the individual and not the job description. And I do not micromanage. I let people, answer the need, but bring as much else as you want. Bring all of you, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that's hopefully the direction that work is moving, is for people to bring their whole selves to work. Because if you're not bringing your whole self, then you're not giving all you can to the role. So that's kind of a catch-22, right? You need to give and take with the company.
Yep. And I would say my challenge to people is to bring your whole self, but who are you beyond the obvious, right?
Mm.
Who, like, even diversity, which I mean, that's one of my focuses at work is DEI. And even that is label driven to a certain extent, right? Because we have to understand where we aren't represented to create opportunity and representation. But once created, there's so much more to every individual than that. So I challenge when people say bring your whole self and learn more about yourself every day and continue to bring it and continue to bring it because we are vast and limitless and there's always more to learn.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I know that our listeners are excited to have their questions answered by someone who wrote such an amazing book. So let's jump into these listener questions. So we have a question from Jess. She says, I'm looking to transition from a contract position in social media to a full-time creative director. Any thoughts on how I can start to make that leap?
Yes. I think this takes me back to the very beginning. Creative director is a title that gets bannered around a lot these days. And I think it's really important to understand that that is a position of leadership. It's not just a rung on a ladder. So I say that because the word contractor tips me off a bit. As a contractor, are you running a team? Are you understanding how to help your people grow? Because when you grow your people, that grows the work for you. And if you're not getting that as a contractor, look where else in your life you're getting that and make sure you bring those strengths in as a value to a creative director, because most likely companies looking for someone who can lead in that position and not just have a portfolio at that level. That's kind of table stakes to be considered. To really stand out, you need to bring these other skills.
Right. Really well said. Thank you. And then we have another question from Alex. Alex wants to know, okay. Alex said, I can't stand my manager, but I actually enjoy my job and the pay is what I've been looking for a while. How can I make our relationship better, or should I just try and leave, not finding much that pays as well as my current role?
Oof. That one's a little loaded. I would really love to understand more what the crux is that's, putting the kink in the relationship. I would say if it's coming from Alex, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's coming from a shortcoming in Alex, then there's a personal growth opportunity. Take it, learn what you can and revisit the relationship and see if you can make it better. If it's coming from the manager, if it's toxic management, or something that you cannot control, then I would say if you love the company, look to resources at the company Is there a way to get some help with that? Or is there culture and well-being that can step in and kind of coach you from the inside? Are there other opportunities at the company that allows you to stay at a company you like and in a job that you like without, totally upending what's good about it? If the one other thing I would say is there's a couple mentions of pay in there. We all deserve to be paid what we're worth, and we deserve to be compensated for our value. But if that's the only thing that you're looking at, I would ask you to take a step back. What else are you getting out of the job? And once you determine that, if you can get, your purpose involved in here somewhere, it actually brings this to me personally. I think that would help guide as to whether it's a potential trajectory within the company or if you want to look elsewhere. And if you do want to look elsewhere, what besides money is going to make a job the right job for you? Because again, a paycheck is table stakes. Nobody's working for free, right? We're not doing it for the love of it. We're doing it because we need the money. So set that aside because it's got to be there. What else has to be there to keep you from getting back into the situation? And that's going to be a really important guiding force.
Man, we need to have phone callers coming in now just to answer more questions.
I would love it. I would love it. I mean, I hope it comes through. I have a lot of passion for helping people succeed. That matters to me. If we as people are successful and happy, then we in a world will bring more happiness and success to others.
I couldn't agree more, Merry Carole. And I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been so fun chatting with you. You can find Mary's book, like I said, on Amazon. It's The Great Human Rebrand by Merry Carole Powers. And I'll have all the links in the show notes for you guys. Merry Carole, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you if they want to follow up after this?
Yes, the Great Human Rebrand has a website, greathumanrebrand.com. And I think marycarole.com also leads to that. And there is a contact form on there. So that's a great way to reach out and be in touch.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again for taking time to chat with me. And thanks everyone for listening in.
Oh my gosh, Bree, thank you so much. It was wonderful to be here.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Career Diaries podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review to help get word out about the show. Email bree@careerdiariespodcast.com with your burning career questions to get them answered on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe so you never miss another conversation.